Hello and welcome to another Around the Nest. Jay talking our way around the Toronto Blue Jays minor league organization. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler with the Lansing Lugnuts, and this week, we'll wrap up the regular season talk. The minor league baseball season will conclude this weekend into Labor Day Monday, and then the playoffs will begin. Now, it has been decided this will not be the last episode of Around the Nest for 2014. We'll do one more show next Friday just to see how every team ended its season, have a check-in on the playoffs at the very least. But for the moment, as far as the regular season goes, we can start to wrap things up and see how teams are winding down. I encourage you to check out Around the Nest on YouTube. We put all the episodes up from this season, and it's easy for you to click the link and skip forward to whichever broadcaster you would like to hear from or whichever interview you would like to hear from. We are also available on iTunes as well as SoundCloud, and the website is aroundthenest.mlblogs.com. Let us open up this week with the voice of the AAA Buffalo Bisons, Ben Wagner. Ben, what is the current playoff picture for Buffalo?
Tight, very tight. In fact, 3 teams in the International League Northern Division have yet to establish who will claim the division, let alone a wild card berth. The West and the South have already been solidified. Columbus is going to the playoffs. The Durham Bulls are headed to the postseason once again. But Syracuse, Pawtucket, Buffalo, and Rochester are all left going into the final 4 games of the regular season, not only trying to fight for position, but all 4 will end up in some scenario playing each other over the final 4 days. Buffalo starts the season, the final 4 games with 2-game series here in Rochester. They'll go to Syracuse to finish out the final 2. Meanwhile, tonight, Syracuse plays Pawtucket. The final 2 games of the regular season for the Paw Sox will be played against the Rochester Red Wings. There have been a number of people that have covered the International League scenarios for a long time, a lot of veterans around the IL Northern Division that we see constantly in our travels. Nobody can remember a scenario drawing out like this. The Bisons have the most wins within the IL Northern Division, but yet are the third-place team. Rochester still can control their own destiny as a fourth-place team if they win out. They could knock out Pawtucket from a wild card race and claim that crown, meanwhile leaving Buffalo and then the Paw Sox obviously in the dust. There is so much in terms of scenarios and so much in terms of who plays when and how and what game breaks down to either lead Buffalo to that opportunity, but it all boils down to this for all 4 teams. They have to win.
Do you have a feel for how Buffalo is currently playing?
Yes, very well. Not only is this team complete, and that's the broadest stroke you can say, because they've got an outstanding pitching. The Bisons have spotless defense, and it will be on display tonight. Jonathan Diaz, Ryan Goins up the middle. Dan Johnson continues his major league rehab, but hasn't missed a beat playing first base. Matt Haig, a recent addition to this ball club, is an outstanding third baseman. Plus, you've got the speed of Dalton Pompey and Anthony Ghost, and Cole Gillespie is about swinging as well as anybody in the lineup right now. And the Bisons have put together an offensive attack that has scored 10 or more runs 4 out of the last 8 ball games. So Buffalo is clicking on all cylinders right now, and now you just have to throw a baseball onto a clean mound and tell the Bisons with Sean Nolan and lefty tonight, Sean Gilmartin, go get them. Figure it out.
It's fun to see just how cleanly Dalton Pompey has integrated into that Buffalo attack. That transition for him, he had a real rough start in New Hampshire. It does not look like things have begun roughly at all for him with the Bisons.
It's a mental approach. I asked him about the difference between the different organizations or moving up the organization and the different levels within. He said he was a little intimidated. He heard the biggest jump will be from the Florida State League to AA, and that was in the back of his mind, and it kind of got in the way. I said, well, how's that going to affect AA to AAA? He said, I'm not even thinking about it. I'm going to go out there, try to be the same hitter that I am. And he collected his first base hit, and he took a sigh of relief, and he's been taking off ever since. And he's been playing center field or DHing. No ill effects with the quad injury as well. That was a little bit of a setback in AA. But given the opportunity to come up, clearly earning a spot in the leadoff slot and performing very well for the Bison. I think maybe even a little bit of a surprise for the management. for Buffalo. 11 hits in his first 8 ball games, a couple of extra base hits. One thing that has changed his game this year is the ability to bunt. He's been able to display that at proper times, not forcing it at all, but also then picking his spots on the base pad to run. And he's attempted 4 stolen bases at the AAA level against some very good catchers, too. And he's been successful in all 4.
Interesting to see as this Buffalo offense has taken shape. It's been those recent additions, whether it's been Dalton Pompey, whether it's been Brett Wallace slugging in the order, and Wallace only joined you in July, or Cole Gillespie only joined you in August. And this is a new look, in a matter of speaking, Buffalo offense, and everybody is gelling, and everybody seems to know their role.
It's really interesting because Anthony Gose and Dan Johnson, out of the starting 9 that will bat tonight, are the only 2 that were with the Bisons and in the lineup on opening day. That's it. 7 other new additions, whether it's been from promotion, whether it's been from acquisition. All these different players are new, but yet all able to gel very quickly, and it doesn't matter. It's a clubhouse that has come together very fast as well with relationships, and obviously the success has breeded a lot of that. So from a broadcast standpoint, I think even more so from a fan perspective, it's been an easy team to fall in love with. It's been an easy team to track. And also, now at this point in the season, it's an easy team to get on board with.
Let's go over the postseason awards, which I guess is a misnomer. It's the awards for the 2014 season, but they've been handed out. Season's not done yet. The Stan Barron Most Valuable Player is now back in the major leagues. Kevin Pillar, what did he do to earn that award this season?
The guy just hits. He was the MVP not only on the field, and he was able to do so putting up just amazing numbers, second most doubles in the modern era for a Bison at the plate, and while missing over a month of Major League service time out of the Bison's lineup. Would have been really interesting and perhaps even an IL batting championship for Kevin Pillar if he would have been with Buffalo all season long. Now, of course, he's going to miss the final 2 weeks of the regular season, lump it on top of nearly a month straight in the big leagues in early May, and a little bit of a blip of a recall, too, in July. But the overall body of work, plus the fact that whenever Kevin came to the plate, you knew he was going to be able to perform. He had a 21-inning hit streak. He had an 18-game hit streak. There were a couple other significant hit streaks in there as well. When he was in the lineup, he was just as consistent as anybody from start to finish.
I enjoy 2 other awards. They stand out to me, and one of them is the Frank Vallone, the Fremo Vallone Community Service Award. How did Ryan Schimpf earn it?
Ryan Schimpf earned it, one, for being available, but also, as well, going out to the Bison's front office and saying, if you're looking for players to do community appearances, whether it's visiting a hospital, whether it's going to the America League and undertossing some balls to have kids hit, or pushing some children around the base pads so they can feel like they're rounding the base pads like Ryan Schimpf does as he hits 24 home runs this season. He said, I'm your guy. Let me know if there's a need. If I'm available, I will represent the ball club. I'll represent the organization in the community. And it wasn't only ballpark-related things, with the 3-day All-Star, pinch hit and run contest, the Bison baseball camp as well throughout the course of the summer. These were things that Ryan Schimpf made himself available for, sought after our community relations department and Brad Bisbing and said, basically, I'm your guy. And with that willingness and that acceptance, and also the field to know that you just don't open the gates in the minor leagues and have people arrive. The Bison's front office works tirelessly year-round from start to finish, 9 to 5 in the off-season, making phone calls to make sure that there are people in the seats in April all the way through the end of August. And Ryan Schimpf realizes that it takes a big part of their ability to be out in the community to network with these people to give them an opportunity to get these groups out.
And one more award to ask you about, the most inspirational player voted on by the team themselves, Mike Nickius. How is he the most inspirational player for Buffalo?
You know what? I think this was maybe a tight race because this is one award that is voted only on front office and clubhouse personnel. It's not subjected to the media. It's not given to the front office and people that are not connected outside the on-field uniform personnel staff and players. These are the guys that get an opportunity to vote for this award, and that's why Mike Nickius. So he definitely makes an impact in his personal demeanor every day, how he keeps things lighthearted. Of course, he's a veteran. He's been in Buffalo now for 6 consecutive seasons, so he's endured some miserable Aprils, but he's enjoyed some wonderful weather, and now basking really in the best opportunity of any Bison club that he's been associated with and their success. So that mentality and that, I think, also a stamp of approval of the situation that as a player you're given when you come to Buffalo. I think he really set the tone, and it's a deserved award, no doubt.
Joined by Ben Wagner of the AAA Buffalo Bisons, our Around the Nest question of the week is, what will you remember most about this season?
I hope the finish, and maybe we can talk about it next Friday. That's what I'm really hoping about. It's selfishly, this is my 8th season in Buffalo through 3 different affiliations, and this is the most excitement from a ballpark perspective that we have had, and no doubt the affiliation with the Blue Jays have made a direct impact on the number of people that have come across the border to watch the future Toronto Blue Jays play, and that was indicative of just a tremendous homestand. The last 6 ball games of the season, the Bisons pulled in over 82,000 people through the gate, including the sellout on Fan Appreciation Night, where you literally had to put the sold out, no more tickets available sign in the ticket office window. It doesn't get back to the glory days of the early 1990s when there were a number of sellouts over the course of the year and the Bisons were drawing over 1 million people, but it was that kind of atmosphere in the ballpark over the final 6 games of that 8-game homestand that I think will be the lasting memory for me of this season. And now, of course, the fun play on the road with Buffalo playing 2 more here in Rochester and then finishing the series in Syracuse.
Well, we'll be talking once again next Friday, and I look forward to whatever it is that we'll be talking about. One of the best finishes that the International League can remember in quite some time, and it's right ahead of us the next 4 days. Ben, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Jesse. See you Friday.
From Ben Wagner with the Buffalo Bisons in AAA to Tom Gauthier with the AA New Hampshire Fisher Cats. Tom, the question of the week, what are you going to remember most from this season?
You know, I think there are 2 things, Jesse, that I'll remember most from this year. One individual moment was, and it's not even baseball related, it was back just a couple of weeks ago, our front office staff, we did the Ice Bucket Challenge as an entire staff, and then we challenged the team. And it came down on Sunday, and there was some great participation in terms of guys beforehand saying, oh, yeah, absolutely, I'll do that. And then even the day of, there were some guys that said, I don't know about that. And they said, well, if we lose the game, it's going to be awkward. Well, we won the game, and then we had every single player was out on that field, and the coaches, trainers, everybody was out there to take part in the Ice Bucket Challenge, which was a really cool moment. We were right down the line, guys dumping on one another. So it was a pretty cool moment to see that and, to see the entire team come together. And then I think the other thing that I'll remember is that through a very tough month of May, we were only 9-23 in May and 32 games. It was a dreadful month. We had an 11-game losing streak, but it was a competitive team that very easily could have gone, 50-90 in the season, could have been right down there with the Harrisburg Senators and the Altoona Curve over in the other division. But they came back together, and they really never came apart, but they started to play a little bit better. Guys like Kevin Nolan, guys like Andy Burns started to carry a heavier load. They rebounded from very tough months in April and May. And it's a team that was 12 games over 500 from May 31st right up through this last homestand. So for me, that's the thing that I'll remember most, is that it was a team that very easily could have mailed it in and did just the opposite, had one of the better records in the second half of the season from June 1st on, right up until this last homestand where things have started to sort of fade away again.
Talking to Ben Wagner about the awards given out by the Buffalo Bisons, and I note on NHFisherCats.com that there was a member of the Fisher Cats who was also honored. Let me ask you about Bob Tarpey, who's been one of my favorite guys that I've met in baseball, the Eastern League Minor League Athletic Trainer of the Year. Tell me about Bob.
Yeah, I think that Bob, Jesse, in my vantage point, I think you and Bob are probably 2 peas out of the same pot there in terms of, just overall nice guys. He's a great guy. He's a budding golf star. At least he wants to be a budding golf star. He only talks about golf if he's not talking about baseball. But he's one of those guys, to use the cliche, will give you a shirt off his back, no matter what you need. If you needed something, if you have a hangnail and you wanted to look at it, he'll look at it. If you had a question about a player move, he'll answer that question. Just a phenomenal guy. And then on top of that, he's a phenomenal trainer. I mean, we've had probably our healthiest team since I've been here, which certainly takes some luck as well. But the guys that have been hurt, fortunately they haven't had anything serious, but they've all been very quick to come back. We haven't had any really long-term injuries in terms of the course of the season. So I think you put that package together, And just the fact that he's a jovial guy. He hardly ever gets down. It's always a bright, sunny day in his world, even if it's raining and, batting practice is canceled and we're going to have a 3-hour rain delay that night. Just a phenomenal guy to work with, and, I've enjoyed my last 3 years with him as you have since you've known him. Just a great guy and a guy that's very, very knowledgeable about what he does, and no doubt should be in the big leagues someday.
From talk to a guy on the field, Brad Glenn could have taken the season any particular way. Wanted to start the season in AAA, began it with New Hampshire, wasn't all that great, moved up to Buffalo, bashed, made his Major League debut, gets sent down to New Hampshire. And, Tom, he is hitting the cover off the ball right now. What is it like to watch Brad Glenn at the plate?
It's fun to watch him because he's changed as a hitter from what we saw back in 2012. I remember in 2012, he was about 220 pounds, and he was ripped. I mean, he was just this guy that was all muscle, and he said after that season, he goes, I hated it. He goes, I was very tight. I didn't feel like I could move. He's a little bigger now. He's not as shredded as he once was, but he's a lot better player. He's a guy that has really kind of developed into an all-around player. He was a good defender. He's become a better hitter. He's hit 260 to 270 with us over the last year and a half, and that was compared to, I think it was 230 or 240 his first year. He's cut down on the strikeouts. He's continued to have the home runs. He had a ball the other night that Jack Murphy was in awe. Even talking about it today, that almost hit the hotel in center field. It was probably 420 feet on a bit of a cooler night the other night. And then 4 of his 9 hits since he's come back have been home runs. But I think the thing that impresses me the most is that he's not had a bad attitude at all this season. He's not been woe is me. You mentioned it. He was supposed to start the season in AAA Buffalo. His car went to Buffalo. He came to New Hampshire. Car came back to New Hampshire. He went to Buffalo the 2 days before that, so he's never even been really reunited with his car for a good portion of this summer. His car's back in Buffalo now. He's with us. And he got a chance really to kind of pout and mope and finish the season down here in a grumpy manner. But you talk to him and he says, I'm not disappointed. The only thing that I'm disappointed in is that I don't get to play for anything. I'm not part of that playoff race up in Buffalo anymore. So a guy that has really matured, not that he was immature, but a guy that's really matured and really has a very good perspective on where his season is, and certainly not where he's started and finished where he wanted to be, but making the best of it, as 4 home runs in 3 days will tell you.
You've had the chance to get to know Brad Glenn, one of the newer players to your team. Was one of my favorite lug nuts from a year ago. Nicknamed himself the heartbeat of the team. That's Ben White out of Temple University. So there he goes now to get called up from A-Adv. He not only works an MAC inning, 9 pitches, 3 strikeouts. Ben White puts forth a very good outing. How is it having White now at the AA level?
We haven't had him long enough to get a real good grasp on him. We saw this last year with guys like Jonathan Jones, guys that were good guys, but they came up here for such a short amount of time that it may have been a little bit tougher to tell the impact. But seems to get along with guys. He's a guy that's a little bit chattier. He likes to talk a little bit. You're the heartbeat of the team. It's not because you're a silent Sam and you sit in the corner and you mind your own business all day. But he's been a good guy so far. We interviewed him, and just a happy-go-lucky guy. He's happy to be in AA, happy to be pitching, and understands that he goes back in the off season to Philadelphia and he finds a job and he works just like a regular Joe, like you or I, and then gets a chance to pitch again next summer. So I think in that regard, that perspective and that view of life, really gives him a different outlook on life and gives him that happy attitude. Whereas you've seen it before, guys they'll get in the minor leagues and they'll say, oh, well, this guy shouldn't be playing. I'm getting screwed here. Or, this guy's not as good as me. I should be up at that level. And Ben just doesn't seem to have an ounce of that in his body.
Oh, it's fun to see. You're wrapping up this season. What are you looking forward to these final couple of games of this year?
To be honest with you, I hope a couple of wins. The last couple of days we've not really played well. We didn't play like this when we lost 11 in a row, and now we've lost 6 out of 7. Going back to that last homestand. And I think part of it may be guys just starting to hit that wall at the end of the season with nothing to play for. The motivation may be a little bit harder to come by at times. But last 2 nights we've given up 4 runs in the first inning on Wednesday and Thursday, so you're down 4-0 right away. And all of a sudden you're like, yeah, all right, well, here we go again. We got 8 more innings to go with this. So I'm hoping for, some quick starts down here in New Britain. It's not been our trend this year. I was looking at the numbers today on the bus. We're a -47 in run differential over the first 2 innings, and I think that has started to catch up to us. And to give you the perspective on that, we're -47 in the first 2 innings, and I think we're 10 overall in the season, minus 10 or minus 15. So first two innings have really undone us, however you want to word it, almost all season long. So fast starts and just a couple of wins, and, the guys haven't really been down at all. They were talking about fantasy football today, so I think that they're looking forward to the off season, but I hope that they don't look too far ahead and don't get a chance to enjoy what they're doing, because some of these guys, who knows where they'll be next year? Who knows if they'll even be playing baseball? So I hope that they get a chance to enjoy that and get a couple of wins and can go into the off season saying, you know what? We won a couple of games at the end, and, we didn't necessarily have to, but we did, and now we can go to the off season happy.
Good point. Tom, we know where we'll be. And next Friday, I hope you'll join us to just recap the season, look back, and go over some moments and go over some players who stood out.
Jesse, as long as I'm not golfing 72 holes that day, it shouldn't be a problem. We should be here next Friday without a problem.
Sounds great. Tom Gauthier in AA. Tom, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
From Tom with New Hampshire, down the ladder we go to A-Advanced Tyler Murray. Tyler is the voice of the Dunedin Blue Jays, Lieutenant Murray, the voice of the people. And Tyler, let me ask you, first and foremost, what are your most memorable moments from this season?
Well, I think, Jesse, first of all, hello, great to be back. We've just had so many stand-up performers this year, and it was just so tough to encapsulate what they've accomplished throughout the 140 games of this season. I think it was the All-Star game. The starting lineup for the FSL North Division All-Stars in Bradenton, Florida. We had Taylor Cole on the mound, Derek Chung behind the plate, K.C. Hobson at first, Dwight Smith Jr. in left field, and Dalton Pompey in center. So we had 5 out of the 9 All-Star starters, and, of course, the home team's broadcaster called that game, so I got to go as a fan, and just being able to sit down at field level and look at all the players who had done so much for the Blue Jays ball club in the first half of the season, be recognized by the rest of the league. That was just a great moment for the organization, and just for me to be able to watch those guys and root them on for once instead of just coming up in the press box and talking about them out of earshot. So that was a lot of fun, and I really do think it kind of captured just how well the Blue Jays had played in the first half. And same story in the second half, Jesse. They've got a league-high 3 full-season All-Stars and the manager of the year, Omar Malave. So it's been a great season.
Let's talk about how your DJs are shaping up come the postseason rotation. How's the team feeling? Entering the playoffs, as we're wrapping up the regular season right now, is there anything that needs to be secured before that postseason can start?
Well, it looks like the rotation's set to go. It should be Matt Boyd for Game 1, looking like it's going to be in Daytona against the defending champion Cubs, and then Taylor Cole for Game 2, and then either Roberto Osuna or Miguel Castro for Games 3. So shaping up to be a pretty deep rotation if the Blue Jays can push it that far. Unfortunately, they just came off a 3-game series against the Cubs, and the situation is if Daytona wins one of their last 3 games they're in, but if they get swept by the Tampa Yankees, it'll be against Tampa for the Blue Jays. So looking like the Cubs, they're red hot right now. And in the 3-game series they just played against Daytona, the Blue Jays won Game 1, 7-6. They lost Game 2, 6-5, and then Game 3 with Matt Boyd on the mound, not having allowed more than 2 earned runs all season. He got knocked around a little bit, and the Blue Jays lost 8-2 against their potential future playoff opponents. So that might have been a cause for concern for Blue Jay fans, and they actually had a stretch during that series when they went 1 for 17 with runners in scoring position, but a lot of bats are heating up. Mitch Naves finding his groove. They got L.B. Dantzler hitting his stride. His batting average has been up 20 points for every one of the 3 months he's been here. So they're looking for that big hit right now. The pitching has been great, but the big hit has been lacking as of late. But I think Jesse, this roster is full of guys who have shown the ability to come through in the clutch for past playoff teams, certainly in Vancouver over the last couple of years. So I've got a feeling it might come around in the playoff round, certainly Game 1 on Tuesday. Hopefully the Blue Jays bats can heat up a little bit to match what the pitching's been able to do.
Well, it is interesting. Speaking of that offense, L.B. Dantzler was the most valuable player of the league last year in the Northwest League playing for Vancouver. Mitch Nay, we know what kind of fine prospect he is. And those guys adjusting to the FSL. First, L.B., has there been a change in his approach? What is going on to help him start to hit the league's pitching better?
I think at first he was a guy who would get a fastball middle in, and he'd have a guaranteed line drive down the right field line for a double. And that was tremendous, but he's kind of opening up his swing zone a little bit more. We're seeing him go the other way on a mini 3-game hitting streak right now. And for some reason, he just seems to be the guy in pressure situations. And I know there's plenty of people out there who don't take much stock in the quote-unquote clutch stat, but He's hitting .364 with runners in scoring position and 2 away. He has a walk-off double already, and it just seems like he comes up in a lot of tough spots where the Blue Jays need a big hit, and he's oftentimes been the guy to get it done. His strikeout numbers, 36 Ks in 46 games. He doesn't punch out a lot, especially for a guy who can provide some power. Earlier in this month, he had a week when he hit 2 homers in the course of 5 days, so the production is there, and he's doing a good job, I think, of filling that Casey Hobson role. Guys on third, less than 2 outs, he's knocking them in, not trying to do too much, and I think he's been pretty consistent so far in the month of August. I talked about his average kind of moving up every month. Hit 220 in June, but then 237 in July, and now up at 260 in the month of August, so he's really gotten more consistent, I think, and hopefully he'll be even better come September.
Meanwhile, with Mitch Ney, and watching Mitch Ney playing in Lansing, he'd go through periods of time where he wouldn't use the whole field, and there just didn't seem to be too much pop on his bat. That period of time would last maybe a week, maybe a little bit longer, and then he'd start crushing it violently, using the whole field. The ball would explode, and doubles would come with it. And I mention that because I note in his first multi-hit game with Dunedin, there was a double, and I started to think, he's starting to figure out this Florida State League thing. Was there a difference in that game and his approach than his first couple of games with the DJs?
Yeah, that double was actually down the first base line, so he kind of tucked it down the line the other way, and that certainly built his confidence, you can tell. And you can really just see, looking at his game to game, he started 0 for 3 in his first game with 3 strikeouts and a walk. Actually started off 0 for his first 13, but during his last couple of games in that slump, he was hitting the ball very hard, not striking out a lot, but now he's on a 4-game hitting streak, Jesse, getting on base a ton, and as you said, his last game was a multi-hit game. He's getting a lot of loud outs, and you can tell that's adding to his confidence. And like a lot of guys will tell you, at the next level, it's the same game. Maybe you have a couple of pitchers who can throw in the upper 90s with more consistency, but it only took him, I think, maybe a couple of days to get his feet wet and get used to the FSL atmosphere. And now that he's done that, I really think sky's the limit. And he's been batting in the bottom third of the order. In fact, he's hitting 9th this evening, but I would not be surprised at all to see him hit 3rd, 4th, or 5th come playoff time because, as we've said, even when he's retired, he's hitting the ball very high, very deep, and very hard. And once he got that double, as you said, Jesse, I think that's going to be a catalyst for him. Keep getting those extra base hits. And for a team that needs a big producer right now in the middle of the lineup, I really do think Mitch Ney could be that guy.
You received Mitch Ney recently. You received Miguel Castro even more recently. How did you enjoy his FSL debut?
Oh, it was amazing. It really was. For me, yes, he was on the radar. I knew he had some success in the beginning of the year in Vancouver, but he really came out of nowhere, relatively speaking. I don't think anyone saw him reaching Dunedin at this point in the season, and his first start came against the Cubs, who, again, they're probably going to face in the playoffs, and that's the hottest offense in the league. It's not even close. And his stuff, it's just, you've seen it, Jesse, it'll blow you away. You can go upper 90s, and then his breaking stuff is tremendous, but, of course, the changeup is what's turning everyone else's heads. But I think one of the good points made by our video assistant, Chris Kohler, was with his fastball. He's not afraid to buzz guys every once in a while, hit that inside corner, maybe even off the inside corner with 97, and he knows just how intimidating his stuff can be. He's not trying to hit anybody, but he has the command on his fastball to be able to make guys think once or twice about crowding the plate and making them have that fastball in the back of their minds to maybe get them off balance a little bit. And just for a 19-year-old to be able to have that mentality, it really is impressive. And I was just blown away with what he was able to do. So hopefully he can keep it up because this kid looks like he's got a great future.
Finally, with Tyler Murray with the Dunedin Blue Jays, speaking about guys that you currently have, Kendall Groveman busted out this year with Lansing and then Dunedin, and now he's up at the AAA level. There was a great article written about Kendall from John Lott with the National Post in Toronto, and there's a key moment in that article where Graveman said he discovered his cut fastball entirely by accident while pitching in Dunedin in the 4th inning of a game. Do you remember this? Do you remember anything around this when Graveman started to throw a cutter in addition to a sinker?
I walked by him while he was talking with Santiago Nessi. It was their first start as a battery in the FSL. I was walking by, and then I hear Kendall saying, I like to work my cutter in on left-handed hitters with 2 strikes. And I was like, cutter? What are you talking about? He's like, yeah, I worked it out last start, and it's been going great for me. And ever since then, Jesse, that was when we went on just Kendall Graveman watch during that ridiculous month when he gave up 3 runs in about 39 innings, and it was inevitable that he was going up to Double-A at that point. And just to have that extra pitch, it goes without saying. He's got that power sinker at 94, so it's hard and going low. Now he's got the cutter. It's coming hard and moving in on your hands if you're a lefty and outside from you if you're a righty. And then with all those other great pitches as well, to have 2 pitches with great zip on it and good movement, that's what makes him so unhittable if you ask me. And it just kind of popped up out of nowhere. He's talking about a cutter all of a sudden, and after that, when you think about it, that really is when he was able to take it to the next level.
This is Tyler Murray with the A-Adv Dunedin Blue Jays. Tyler, hang tight. Let me bring in Trey Wilson with the Lansing Lugnuts. Trey, how are you?
Great. How's everybody doing?
Tyler, what curiosities, what questions do you have about Lansing that Trey and I can help you out with?
Well, I think just for the sake of every fan who's just recently realized the Lugnuts are still in play in the playoffs, and Jesse, you've done a very good job of documenting that on social media, but Trey, just so I can hear it from the horse's mouth, can you break down what the playoff scenario is? And it's kind of unlikely, I guess, at this point of the year, but the Lugnuts still very much alive, right?
Well, yeah, it's unlikely, but it's there. Tonight could go a long way in changing things for sure, towards the better or the worse. As it sits right now, Lansing sits a game out of a potential postseason spot, but what's hidden in that is the Lugnuts are last in the division still. So a win against Dayton tonight would go a long way in helping that out. A couple of other teams are going to have to pick up wins for the Lugnuts in other series that are going on, but a win against Dayton would secure a tiebreaker against Dayton. The 2 teams are 8-8 against each other so far this year, and it would, depending on what else shakes out with a couple of other games tonight, Lugnuts could potentially be moving right into the a potential postseason spot tonight, and going into the last 3 days, it's just going to take a lot of help. The biggest thing that we're concerned on from the Lansing side is just winning each game. This last game with Dayton tonight is a must-win, and then the next 3 games to close out the regular season at home are 2 out of 3 is a maybe, but sweeping would help the cause quite a bit. And it's against a very tough South Bend team. The Lugnuts have had almost no success against South Bend this year. Just 3-11, I believe, is the record against the Silverhawks this season. But what we're looking at is a Silverhawks team that clinched a postseason spot in the first half and has nothing really to play for. So, 1, we'll see if that affects how South Bend plays. 2, Lugnuts are playing at a high level right now, at a higher level than we've seen through most of this second half. So a lot has to work out, but it's certainly a possibility over these last 4 games.
Are you noticing at all a different atmosphere in the clubhouse once the guys realize that they still had a chance? And obviously the play has picked up. I saw you guys had a couple of big wins against the Dayton Dragons recently. Are you noticing kind of a different feel in the clubhouse lately?
Well, I think that some of the veteran guys are really starting to pick up on the fact that there's a chance here. And, yeah, most of the guys assumed that everything was over. And then it clicked that a couple of things fell into place. And, there's a little bit different mood. There's some guys that are saying, hey, let's go get this thing. Let's make this happen. So it's been there's been a shift in the mood, especially after last night's win, moving within a game of a potential postseason spot, just 1 game back. It kind of caught everybody by surprise, but there's a renewed energy with that surprise. After playing just terrible baseball through most of this second half, to still have a chance and knowing the kind of talent that this team has and is gaining, because there have been some players that have come in that have made a big impact even over the last couple of weeks, week and a half or so. There's a lot of optimism there, and there's a lot of fire to go out and make something happen with these last 4 games.
A guy that I'm asked a lot about here in Dunedin is DJ Davis, and the Blue Jays outfield here in the FSL has had a ton of great prospects that everybody's looking at. Davis, his average is definitely low, but he's certainly high up on the prospect ranks. What potential do you see for him? Maybe a guy who could start next season or maybe the second half next year in Dunedin. What do you see from him? Do you think he could have the potential going forward to boost that average up? I'm seeing 8 homers, not terrible for him, and obviously a great athlete. But, yeah, to answer a question from a lot of people in the FSL, what are you guys seeing from him?
Well, absolutely. He's in my mind, he is still a big prospect, and the word prospect itself is looking into the future to try to figure out what this guy's going to be. And with DJ, when it all clicks, look out. I've seen him struggle through a couple of seasons now, this year more so than necessarily in 2013 when he was down with us in Bluefield. But the strikeout numbers in the first half were just alarming, and he has been up in the leaderboards in strikeouts in the league because of that first half mostly. He still had a lot of strikeouts in the second half, but the rate that he is striking out, the frequency that he is striking out is down so much. He's putting the ball in play more. He's working walks, which he wasn't doing before. He's still not working a lot. He's not the typical leadoff guy that I think a lot of people in the organization and a lot of people that follow these prospects thought that he was going to be. That's not really where he fits into a lineup because, again, his on-base percentage is not going to be what you want to see for a leadoff guy with the type of offensive player that he can be. He's got incredible power. Some of the home runs that he has hit this year, including his most recent one, have just made jaws drop. He's got great power. 8 home runs, it doesn't sound like a lot, but in this league, that's a lot. And for this team, it's second on the team this year behind only Matt Dean. So playing in the ballpark that the Lugnuts play in, that's and the ballparks that the Lugnuts visit the most, like West Michigan, for instance, there are a lot of very hitter-friendly ballparks in this, pitcher-friendly ballparks in this league. The power's there. If he continues to cut back on the strikeouts and put the ball in play more, it'll be fine. The biggest thing is when he does something as spectacular as that home run that he hit a couple of nights ago against the South Bend Silverhawks back at home, you see a pep in his step. You see his eyes light up, and he starts to enjoy the game a little bit better when he has some success. So I think with DJ, as he continues to have success, it's going to inevitably come with the skills that he has. If maybe something clicks to where he says, oh, this being the best is an awesome thing, I think that it's something that can really click for him and make him everything else will start to fall into place. Not to mention defensively, he has made he's got some errors this year, a lot of errors for an outfielder, and he's made some plays that have kind of made us shake our heads at times, but he's also made some plays that, like his power has shown, have made our jaws drop. He's a spectacular outfielder defensively, and as he spends more time in the game, his instincts get a little bit stronger. He just look out. I think next year he's poised for a breakout year in the Florida State League if that's where he ends up.
And Jesse and Trey, last question I have for you about the Lugnuts before I guess we got to move on. How about some pitchers who have kind of stepped up and maybe surprised you in the second half of the season? Obviously, there's no way to stick around in a playoff race like this without some good pitching. And it sounds like even with Castro being promoted up to Dunedin, the starting pitching's been all right enough to keep it close, and I'm sure there's some good bullpen standouts as well.
Well, the starting pitcher has been better than it's been at any point this season through the month of August, and the rotation right now is not filled with the big-name prospects that it was filled with at one point. Jeremy Gaboriski, who you guys saw briefly down there for a pair of starts, he's slumped off in the second half. He's having a tough go in the second half. But Starlene Suriel, after his promotion from Vancouver, just about every start that he puts together is statistically a quality start and looks like a quality start. He's not going to give up much. Here in the opener in Dayton a couple of nights ago, he gave up 2 home runs in the first inning, and then after that didn't give up another hit. He put together another strong outing there. He doesn't have any overpowering stuff, Suriel. He just throws strikes, and when he keeps the ball down and pitches to contact, he doesn't get solid contact against him very often. So he has been extremely reliable since coming up and has been quite a surprise. And I think another of the biggest surprises in the rotation has been Brad Allen. After he was non-drafted, he was picked up out of independent ball from the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks let him go earlier this year. And from a Lugnuts standpoint, we are extremely thankful. He brings a veteran presence to the team, and he goes out there and he fights through every single start that he makes, and it's very rare that you see him not go 6 innings and give up more than maybe 3 runs. He's been extremely reliable. He's been durable. He pitched 6 innings in a game against his former team, South Bend, after he broke his thumb in the first inning on a ball that bounced back to the mound, and he still put together an extremely good outing that day. He has been a much-needed piece to put into this rotation. Jesse, do you have anything else to tack onto that?
Yeah, let me give you an odd comparison that has occurred to me with Starlene Suriel. He reminds me of Drew Hutchison. He doesn't have the same frame. He's gaining the velocity as he gets older, as he gets better with his mechanics, as he gets stronger. The same thing he does that Hutchison would do with the Lugnuts is suddenly when he'd be on his game, nobody reaches. And suddenly there are 1, 2, 3 innings every single time, and there are strikeouts, and whatever it might be, whatever he tosses in, there's no hard contact, and you look up and you say, my gosh, they haven't scored any runs since the first inning, or they haven't had any hits in the last 5 innings against him. Suriel is a name to just keep under wraps, and as long as he keeps on being the number 4, number 5 starter in the rotation with all those huge prospects around him, he gets to be something when he locks in. In his last outing, gave up home runs to the number 2 and the number 3 hitters for the Dunedin Dragons. Came back in the dugout. Pitching coach Vince Horstman had it out with him. Said, I need you to keep it low. I need you to stop showing your stuff so early. Don't let them know what you've got. Show them the fastball right now. We'll get to the rest of that. And suddenly that was it. And the Dunedin Dragons finished the game with 2 hits. Suriel could be something awesome. And there are guys in the bullpen, Trey, Brady Dragmeyer and Francisco Grzeski, particularly Dragmeyer. There is something there. Tyler, you are going to really enjoy your bullpen next year if these pitchers continue to take steps forward.
Great to hear, Jesse and Trey. Well, we'll definitely be singing the Go Nuts song as loud as we can if you guys can sneak into the playoffs. So good luck, and we'll be following along.
Thank you, Tyler. Trey, hang tight 1 second. There's a question from Bluebird Banter before we go down to Vancouver. And the question from Bluebird Banter is this. Rowdy Tellez, what are your thoughts on him so far?
Wow. Those are my thoughts. I had to see him briefly last year in the postseason with Bluefield, and he was, I don't want to say that he had checked out by that point, but he had flown in for just the playoffs, and he didn't do much, but it was only 2 games. Here he came in, and he made an impression immediately, coming up from the big tear that he had in August in Bluefield. He has great strike zone recognition. He's had a few strikeouts the last couple of games, but they're at the point where they're surprising because you can see his approach at the plate that he's selective, and he knows the strike zone well. He will work walks, and when he gets something to hit, he crushes it. We saw him hit his first home run back in Lansing, and he took it out past the batter's eye in center field, just to the left of it. So he took it the other way a little bit, and just he has hitting is his thing. Now, the defense and everything else is going to have to come at some other point, but hitting is there. He's a great bat to install in this lineup, and he's one of the spark plugs that have offensively anyway that have helped out in keeping Lansing's postseason hopes alive over these last few days. I don't think that we can wrap up today without mentioning one of the big reasons why there's still a chance right now. Third-year Lugnut and Jason Leplebezian with the nights that he has had in this Dayton series so far. He had a go-ahead home run in the 9th inning in the first game of this series 2 nights ago that put the Lugnuts on top 3-2 to win the opener of this series. And then how about Leb last night? It was 4 for 5. He had 2 doubles. He drove in 2 runs in 2 separate at-bats. He scored a run and always does fantastic work defensively. He's a veteran guy on this team. His performance in the last couple of days especially has been a big boost to keeping Lansing's postseason hopes alive.
He's doing everything he can. Trey Wilson always does everything he can. Trey, thank you very much for your insight.
Well, thank you, Jesse.
Trey Wilson with the Lansing Lugnuts until next Friday at the single A level. And now time for us to go down to the short season A, the Vancouver Canadians, and Lucas Scott. Lucas, how are you?
I'm great, Jesse. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Let's talk Vancouver. We know in the first half, the Canadians finished the half tied for the best record in the division. They lost the tiebreaker. All right, here's the second half, and there's a tie atop the division again. So how do things look for Vancouver?
I think things looking pretty good for us here. The loss last night definitely hurt a little bit because we had gained that ground, gained that game on Tri-City, and now we're back all square again. So really, to be at this point of the season, to have 4 games left and be controlling your own destiny and being able to win out to secure the spot is definitely a better spot than we found ourselves in the first half, where we're looking at down a couple games and really having to scratch and crawl and hope for other teams to do us favors. Now we know that as long as we take care of our own, that things look good for a 5th straight postseason for Vancouver.
Well, that's good. And we know, do the Canadians make it? Well, if and when they make it, the Northwest League trembles. The question from Bluebird Banter, Franklin Barreto's defense, how has it improved since you've been watching him this year?
Oh, it's been night and day different. I know he was drawing a lot of heat earlier on the season and just mistakes on not necessarily the tough plays. It was more the frustrating with the routine plays where, eating them up, quick bounces, close in on the feet, and not getting the throws right on where he wants. And since that time, I think you look at the rate of the errors that he's made, especially playing such a tough position like shortstop. He's been much more consistent, and then also, adding those highlight reel plays where you don't expect anyone to get to it, and he's able to make those plays. So you see the flashes of how good this kid can be, and like we were saying a few weeks ago, or earlier, first half of the season, that if people just recognize that he's the youngest position player at his current level, and they give him a little bit of time to grow into the role and get the reps playing at a professional level, he's definitely more than capable of sticking at that position.
He's been with you all year long. Who have been your biggest recent additions?
The biggest recent additions, I think last week, a big reason for stringing some games together and getting back to a position where we could control our own destiny on the straight was the offense that Gunnar Height brought into the lineup. We had Tim LeCastro was our regular second baseman and a great player and was a huge part of getting on base in key situations. But Gunnar added that extra power bat in the lineup, hitting doubles to gaps at key times and scoring runners in scoring positions. So Gunnar's definitely been a big piece. And then the two recent pitchers that we talked about with Suriel and Castro going up and kind of feeling a bit of a void and not knowing where we're going to get those quality starts from, to have Ryan Barucki and Matt Smorrell come up, who have been very, very good, and if not the leaders in that pitching rotation behind the Ira Laborte, they've been a big reason for the success in the second half.
How about the bullpen? Let's speak about this. The Lansing Lugnuts received Joe LaVecchia, who is an all-star. LaVecchia was replaced by Phil Kish. You have Kish at the back end, Brett Barber, Andrew Case, Michael Kraft, Jeffrey Del Rosario, Aderick Kelly. You can just go on and on. Alberto Torrado, he's figured it out. Nobody's reaching against him. Everybody's striking out. What is the confidence in the C's bullpen right now?
Well, there's a lot of confidence. There was a tough lead that we kind of let slip away last night, so there's a little bit of a dent there. But in the last 2-3 weeks, those guys have really stepped it up in a big way. When it was sort of the Achilles heel, where we're getting these great starts from our starters and not knowing what we were going to get out of that back end, and just bringing a guy in like Phil Kish, and you obviously had experience with him. He has that mentality and that mindset that you want in a closer, a guy in high leverage situations. So I think there was a lot of guys that were sort of jockeying for that position and maybe weren't quite there yet, weren't ready to handle that mentally. So by sliding him into the ninth, and he's been perfect for us in save situations, it kind of then allowed all the other guys to slide into their roles and feel more comfortable, and that's had a huge effect on the bullpen. And Torrado, like you were saying, has been a real big piece of that step forward. In the start of the season, he came with high expectations. We looked at him as more of a rotation arm, and just some of the problems that plagued him at other levels continued to hamper him here with the high walk rate and just missing on pitches. But now, people have known he's always had the stuff. He has an incredible arm speed and incredible movement on his pitches. But now that he's hitting the strike zone and being able to pitch those pitches for strikes, you're seeing the batters in the Northwest League, they're having a heck of a time keeping up with them. And like you said, just piling up the strikeouts.
Our Around the Nest question of the week: what are the most memorable moments in this season? When you remember 2014, what will you remember?
There's a few of them that really stand out. I think the first record to fall, when we were talking about the season of maybe the most offensive C's team that we've seen, and since they've been in the short season category the last 14 years, was when Roman Fields was able to steal his record 26th base. I think everyone kind of saw it coming, knew he was close, and he got on base, stole second, and right away the next pitch stole third, and that just sort of typified the season that he's having and just this uncontainable speed. So that was a really cool moment just for all the fans, and then they were able to recognize what an achievement that was. And then there's been a couple of real nail-biter extra inning games at Nat Bailey Stadium, and the one that stands out the most for me was a game against Everett that went to the 14th inning, that we were down to our last out in the 9th, managed to tie it up, down to our last out again in the 11th, managed to tie it up, and eventually was able to walk away with the win. So that thing goes down as the, if we are going to be able to squeak in here by the half game or the full game, then that's one that you go, you really dug deep and saved the season by turning that game around.
Lucas Scott with the Vancouver Canadians. It's a big weekend coming up, and we're going to see the Seas punch their ticket, head back to the postseason, and get the chance to defend their 3 consecutive NWL championships. Lucas, thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Have a great day.
From Lucas in Vancouver, down the ladder we go to Kevin Fitzgerald, an advanced rookie, Bluefield. Kevin, how are things wrapping up for you?
Hey, Jesse. We actually just had our last game of the year in Bluefield, and Blue Jays, they won it today, afternoon victory. So they might have bounced a team that was vying for a playoff spot. So as manager Dennis Holmberg said, that makes the win a little sweeter to finish off the year.
All right, let's name some honors. Who's your favorite pitcher of the season for Bluefield?
Yeah, you know what? There were definitely a bunch of them, and I think I'm going to have to go with the guy who he spent part of the year in Bluefield and actually just got called up to the Lansing Lugnuts. As you guys know, Chase Wellbrock, great right-handed arm, as you guys saw a couple nights ago. The guy just throws some serious smoke. Good pitcher from Houston. Played his college ball there, and he was just untouchable this season. I think he might have to get the Reliever of the Year award. And I think if we were going to have to look at a starter, Ryan Barucki, who spent half the year in Bluefield, was just a outstanding pitcher to watch. Left-hander, 20 years old, fresh off a Tommy John surgery, and he was probably the top competitor this season. You'd watch him on the mound, and you didn't want to mess with this guy. He was just a bull on the mound, and would come at you, was aggressive, great guy off the field, and it just worked well with everybody. His catchers, his teammates, I think those guys would definitely get a couple of those 2 nods.
Let me step back to Chase Wellbrock. Got to see him pitching for the Lansing Lugnuts in the game against the Dayton Dragons yesterday, and he fired 3 scoreless innings. So he made a terrific positive impact on us in his first impression. What made him so tough for Bluefield?
It's his fastball, and it's just, it's simple, but it's the location. He would just pound the lower half of the strike zone. He was not, I don't think we saw him make a mistake once. He never left a pitch up in the zone. The fastball, where he was able to spot his fastball and how he was able to spot it was his best friend and was the reason why he was so successful in Bluefield, and I'm sure he will be, during this race in Lansing. So his ability just to spot the pitches, and he was just, you talk about confidence, and he knew when he was out of that mound, he was untouchable, and he gave up one earned run in close to 20 appearances with the Blue Jays, and the one earned run was actually his first appearance of the season. It was, ironically enough, the only run he allowed was a walk-off single in the second series of the year. He picked up a loss and then was just, untouchable and unreal the rest of the season. It really is, he just doesn't miss up in the zone with a fastball, and he's got a 95, mid-90s fastball that's dangerous.
All right, from your favorite pitchers, how about your favorite hitters of the season?
Yeah, there were definitely a couple of them. I think Josh Almonte, I'll have to give a nod to. This is a guy who, he's 20 years old. This is his 3rd year of professional baseball, and he hit 175 the last 2 summers in the Gulf Coast League. And this year, 300 hitter, 15 stolen bases, everyday center fielder. The guy had an incredible glove to go along with his bat. He was just so much fun to watch at the plate because he took every pitch seriously, took every moment, every at-bat, every little stride seriously. The one thing he said was, I asked him today actually on our final post-game show, I said, don't sugarcoat it for me. How did you go from 175 to 300? And he said, I was careless at times last year. I would strike out, I wouldn't think anything of it. But I would take a strikeout this summer, and I would really analyze it. What did I do? What did not I, what did I not do? He'd go over with his coaches, with the roving instructors. And it seemed like he just was covering his tracks mentally and especially physically. The guy has just zero body fat at all. I mean, he's a freak athlete, so that lends to it. But it seemed like he was just mentally ready and more matured this year. I'd have to give it to Josh Almonte, and then unfortunately a catcher who went down with an injury earlier this summer, Dan Jansen, was a blast to watch. Another competitor, 5 home runs. in a month and a half. Imagine what he would have done with another month of the season. Unfortunately, he has to go back to Tampa to rehab. Those two guys, I think, were the purest and definitely two of the best hitters that I enjoyed watching.
Let me ask you about Lane Thomas. Lane Thomas is batting .323 in 18 games. He has played third base, and he has played outfield. What do you make of him? Does he have a better position of the two? And at the plate, he just looks like he's been very comfortable.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Plays third, plays outfield. You know, he can play shortstop as well. Manager Dennis Holmberg, Blue Jays managers, went up to him when he first got called up from the Gulf Coast League and said, I need to stick you at third base. Never played third base before. He was an outfielder in high school. This is his first year in professional ball. He was an outfielder in high school. Occasionally played shortstop growing up. Had no problem with it, and he really slid in nicely. You wouldn't have even figured that he wasn't an outfielder. The first night he's in the lineup, you think, okay, you got a good infielder here, and then you talk to him after the game, and he says, I never played third before. You would never have realized it, and it just speaks to his character. He's just turned 19. He's hungry. I mean, this kid is just hungry to grow in minor league ball. You can tell when they just have that hunger to really advance at this level. He has got great hands through the zone. Always gets the barrel of the bat through quickly. I mean, not a lot of guys possess that ability to get the bat through the zone quick, and he has got it. And he's 19 years old in his first year of pro baseball. You look at him; he's about 6'1", 190 pounds. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he hit 15 home runs as a senior in high school. He's not the biggest guy, but he can hit for power. He does hit for average, and he tore up the Gulf Coast League. And he's someone who's just got a good head on his shoulders. It was interesting. Sean Hurley, an outfielder who was with the Vancouver Canadians, now with the Blue Jays the last month of the season. Those two guys have worked a lot together. Hurley's just a great leader off the field, and I love that on road trips they would room together, and Dennis put them together, and Hurley kind of took them under his wing. It was great to see that. As Lane obviously is very young, only 19 years old, and not only his play on the field, but just working with a leader like Sean and those two guys on and off the field really meshed. So I think that will obviously help Lane in all facets on and off the field as well.
He's an early round pick and a teenager. There's a pitcher who fits that same description and also pitched pretty darn well in Grayson Huffman. What is the scouting report on Grayson? How good can he be?
Big left-hander, a Texas kid. He loves football. He loves baseball. He just goes out there and throws. He's also very aggressive, and he just pitched today. 4 innings, didn't allow a single run against a playoff team in the Pulaski Mariners, or a possible playoff team. He attacks you. There were a couple times today where he just went fastball in, up in the zone, inner half, up in the zone. And would really make you look foolish, and then throw a curveball at you. He knows how to come at you with the fastball. I think that's something that he loves to do. He's a big competitor as well. He loves setting up the breaking ball with aggressive fastballs in the zone. He's not going to try and beat you down to the strike zone. He'll say, hey, here's my stuff in the inner half. Go ahead and try and get around on it. Like you said, also a young guy. So it was really good to see him finish the season strong today. 3 outings in Bluefield after getting called up from the Gulf Coast League, and he allowed 1 run. So he's a starter that you will see eventually down the road, moving up the ladder in the Blue Jays organization. Just a hard-nosed kid.
Someone who also finished the season strong, 2 scoreless innings out of Carlos Ramirez, who began the year as an outfielder for the Lugnuts, finished the year as a pitcher for Bluefield. How has he looked as he has progressed in his conversion to pitching?
He's looked good, and I'll be honest with you guys, he misses you guys up there. He said, man, I would love to have that bat back in my hand. Being in Lansing was great. He misses it. He definitely has said, he misses being able to play the outfield and hit a little bit, but he's embraced this. He has really embraced the role of being on the mound, close to 20 appearances this summer. He's 23 years old. He's a little older than some of the other guys, but he really took this and ran with it. His ERA is below 3. When you look at that stat line, it obviously passes the eye test. I asked Dennis about that. Where do you see him being next year? Do you think he'll be up in Lansing? And he said, that's probably where he could be. next year. You know, he'll be 24 years old. He'll have a solid year under his belt. I think the one thing that he struggled with a bit was the control. The walks were up the last few appearances of the season, but he's a flamethrower. He throws it hard, and he just gets you to pound it into the dirt. He's going to make you put it in play to beat him, and he proved this year that it was tough to do that. It really was. So it was fun to see him progress in his first year on the mound, a little bit raw. I think that's what this league, the Appalachian League rookie level, is about. You have just raw talent. You want to refine it, and I think that's what Carlos did this summer.
Let's wrap up with you. This is your first season in professional baseball after broadcasting in the Cape Cod League. You graduated from college. You were in the AtN League. How was this experience for you?
It was a tremendous summer. This was the summer of my life. It really was great. Like you said, I spent some time up in the Cape League, and that's amateur, quote unquote amateur ball. It's collegiate summer baseball, and you just don't have that. You really don't have that professional feel to it. You know, the guys are in the clubhouse, and that's their home. That's their home base, and you're working with a manager who's been with an organization like the Blue Jays for decades. You really get an appreciation of how things are run at a minor league level, how things are run at a professional scale, day-to-day basis. Players move, guys go up, guys go down. This is their job. They get paid to do this. I'll put it this way: you really don't get that appreciation for it working in a professional for a professional team, feeling that professional vibe of working with a baseball team that's affiliated with a Major League Baseball organization. So I really appreciate it. I love the stories, and you sit in your office with your coach, and you hear all the stories about his decades of coaching in the Blue Jays organization, who he coached, and where he is now, and so and so, Jim Tolman. I don't know. You hear all these names, and you talk with the players, you find out their stories. I think that's obviously what we do this for. Is that you get to work with guys, and they're from all over the place, and you get to learn their past, their stories, and the reason they want to play baseball. So I think it's just appreciating, the professional side of it. You really, minor league baseball is a whole different animal compared to other things. So this was awesome. It really was great. And Jesse, you do a tremendous job with these. It's been a blast being on these around the nest every week. I'm looking forward to next week as well.
Kevin, thank you very much. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for putting in all those time, all those hours, and all those games squeezed into a very short amount of time. Thank you.
Hey, no problem, and good luck the rest of the way in Lansing.
Kevin Fitzgerald with the Bluefield Blue Jays. We heard from Kevin, Lucas Scott in Vancouver, Trey Wilson in Lansing, Tyler Murray in Dunedin, Tom Gauthier in New Hampshire, and Ben Wagner in Buffalo. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler. Check us out on YouTube, on iTunes, on SoundCloud, or on aroundthenest.mlblogs.com. Any way that we can find a way to reach you. We want to make this much more easier for you. That'll do it for this week. One more week of Around the Nest to go in 2014. Till then, enjoy the baseball.